Trust comes when your people share the same values. The question is, what is trust? So I'm going to ask you on the spot. You're driving down the road and you see a billboard with the word trust on it. Mm-hmm. If you were to define that, right? Because to understand something, we've got to define it so we can refine our understanding. It says trust dash, what's the context? What does it mean to you?
Context? I would have
you own it.
I would have to say belief. I mean, trust is all about the belief in something. If you trust someone...
Okay, so pause. That's really good.
Yeah.
The context would be trust is all about the beliefs.
Yeah.
Right? The beliefs in another, the beliefs in something.
And the values,
right?
In
So
this case,
trust and the context to you would be it's all about believing in something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
that's the context. Because the word is just, the word means nothing until we give it meaning. Yeah, like the word shit. It doesn't mean anything until we give it context. Yeah. And we give things context culturally, which is just that metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief. There you go. So if we're talking about trust is when your people share the same values. Yeah. What does that mean?
I mean, I would have to say people believe in those values. It's not just that they share them, they believe in them. You know, like give first and tend to help. You have to believe that and believe, you know, that there's a positive, you know, reason behind that and you know, just believe in that lifestyle. It's not just
And what is that value? That's ours, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's our first.
Give first, intend to help, and get started today.
Started today.
Because if they don't get started today and there's no takeaway, there's really nothing we can do in the future.
Yeah.
So I just read a book. I've actually read it like 6 times. It's called The Speed of Trust by Stephen M. R. Covey, the 5th generation Covey. His father wrote The 7 Highly Effective Habits of whatever.
Successful
people. So he talks about trust, and the speed of trust is like the root of all productivity. Because if you give a pointer to like an underling, one of your employees, you give them advice or you tell them to do something, there's no back talk or there's no second thought or there's no second. He was talked about in the book, there was a conversation between Herb Keller, who ran Southwest Airlines, which by the way never had a non-profitable quarter in all the years. Yeah. And it was a huge major decision, and the manager brought up to his attention, it was like a 3-minute conversation. On to the next. Because he trusted in that person's character.
Absolutely.
And trust is like the offspring of individuals that share the same belief patterns.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because those belief patterns is what creates the outcomes, because the outcomes are like the offspring of their actions. Yeah. Which is like the result of their belief patterns.
Absolutely.
So if you were to break that down, how clear do you understand that now?
I mean, I greatly understand it. I understand the relationship and the correlation between the two. Like when you trust someone to do something, you believe that they can do it. Okay. Right? Or else you wouldn't trust them. Like if you needed a job done, an important job, and you trusted them, you are believing in them to get that job done. If you didn't believe they could do it, you don't trust them to get the job done. Right?
So what does that have to do with the values and having everyone on the same page? Because if this was common sense, right? Like Einstein said, common sense is just the accumulation of ignorances up to the age of 18. If this was common sense, every company, every family, every group, every individual would get why values that are clear and concise are important.
Yeah, and why trust itself is important.
Well, like, so break that down.
Well, I mean, it's all about, you know, all we're about is culture. You know, just culture completely matters. And if people can trust in the value in that, people can believe in the necessity of that, of having a culture within an organization, company, or business, or whatever it is, you know, I think the CEOs will really appreciate when employees and, you know, people under them start, you know, living up to the expectations because they believe in the values that are, you know, shared with everyone in the organization.
And if the organization isn't clear on their values,
it's sloppy.
Then no one.
A sloppy organization.
I mean, and that you would think that would be common sense.
Yeah.
But it isn't.
It's not
common practice.
Yeah.
So you actually made an interesting point about when people believe that culture matters.
Yeah.
The things start getting moved in the right direction. And I haven't thought of that. That's in essence a value.
Yeah.
That culture matters.
Yeah.
And culture, us defining it as a metaphorical ecosystem of shared belief created by an influencer. See, there's always culture. The question is the culture a result of the leadership, or is it a result of the guy by the water cooler that's just unhappy and resentful about his life and the things going on, right?
Absolutely. Who's sharing the values? Who's creating the values, more importantly?
And that trust is created when everyone in the company shares the same values. That means they believe what everyone believes is on the same page.
Shared belief.